Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you tonight. The Sensex and the Nifty fall for the fourth straight session, posting the biggest one-day drop in a month and the worst losing streak in 5 months. 4 lakh crore rupees in investor wealth wiped out today. Adani Group stocks mark the worst day in 2 weeks as the sell-off continues. The group has lost over 51,000 crore rupees in market cap today, taking the overall wealth erosion since the Hindenburg report to more than 11.6 lakh crores. Members of the Monetary Policy Committee remain cautious on inflation and fear the recent drop could be due to a fall in vegetable prices alone. But 2 external members warn that the committee could overshoot its policy rate target. Jayant Verma says the committee has become complacent about growth.
The central banks need to look at more tools than just interest rate hikes.
Outgoing World Bank President David Malpass says the world has to find a way to answer inflation concerns, called 0% interest rate regimes abnormal. Says rate hikes are a move towards normalcy, expresses optimism about a positive outcome on debt resolution at the upcoming G20 meeting in Bangalore. That's an exclusive. Ahead of the G20 finance ministers gathering in Bengaluru, the IMF chief calls on countries to steer clear of zero-sum policies that will leave the world poorer, calls on the G20 to show courage, warns against the slide towards protectionism.
I think the challenge now is for India to make the transition from being a primarily generics market to trying to support innovative medicine.
Novartis Global CEO Vasant Narasimhan says they are in the execution phase of the journey to become a pure-play innovative company. Novartis will expand its development center in India, hopes India can make the transition from a generic market to supporting innovative medicines. That's another exclusive. Consulting firm McKinsey plans to cut 2,000 jobs as part of a restructuring plan, tells CNBC-TV18. It will continue to hike client servicing professionals and are redesigning the way non-client servicing teams operate. Explosions reported in Kharkiv and other Ukrainian cities. Putin meets top Chinese diplomat Wang Yi in Moscow. Thousands gather at a stadium in the Russian capital for a rally concert marking 1 year of the war. Abnormally high temperatures in many parts of the country trigger heat wave concerns. The Met says higher temperatures are leading to high evaporation, causing dense fog, impacting visibility. Smoggy weather causes severe congestion as the Delhi airport, impacting over 220 flights. The government is assessing if the emergency credit guarantee scheme for COVID-affected sectors needs to be extended beyond the 31st of March. More than 3.4 lakh crore rupees worth of guarantees have been provided as of January this year. The scheme has an upper limit of 5 lakh crores. UP Finance Minister unveils the state's biggest ever budget of nearly 7 lakh crores, allocates funds to help youth, women, startups and agri-sector, expects the state to touch 19% in GSDP in FY24. Well, let's go straight to the market action. And clearly, there was no place to hide on the last tweet today as stock market saw a very sharp sell-off. Frontline indices fell for the fourth day, posing the biggest losing streak that we've seen in the last 5 months. Weak global cues as well as a decline in Asian equities, pushing the Nifty and the Sensex to the lowest closing level since October of last year. Financials led the decline. The Nifty Bank Index dropped below the 40,000 mark. 4 lakh crores in investor wealth wiped out today. All sectoral indices closed with cuts. Anuj is standing by with the wrap of the market action. Anuj, a brutal day today.
Well, the market had some kind of a fear factor today and a lot of crucial levels got disturbed. There was all-round selling, of course, and banks were leading it, and, of course, a lot of large stocks were leading it. No particular reason, but there are 3 major factors. The Federal Reserve, geopolitics and the Adani factor. The market's coming to terms with perhaps 2 or 3 more rate hikes from the Fed. The geopolitics, the Russia-Ukraine war, there's been another angle added with the US President making that unscheduled visit to Ukraine. And of course, the Adani Group stocks got hammered today, led by the F&O side of the market and led by the biggest one, Adani Enterprises, and which is something which also sort of disturbed the mood a bit today. SBI has been leading the big decline in PSU banks, and that's also another factor. In fact, the PSU bank index is now down 21% from peak, and portfolios have taken a big knock. Now, what next for the market? I think technically the next support level comes in straight away on the budget day lows, which are 17,350 on Nifty and 39,490 on the bank Nifty, which also coincides, by the way, with the 200-day moving average. But more than the levels, the market needs some kind of stability in price action.
Anuj, many thanks for joining us. That is the market action of the day. But let's stay with the markets and focus on the Adani Group stocks, which continue to be under pressure. All group stocks have posed major cuts in today's trade. The group's market cap has fallen below 8 lakh crore rupees, and this is the biggest single-day fall that we've seen in the last 2 weeks. Vivek is standing by to give us more on the route that we are seeing across the Adani Group stocks.
Well, absolutely right. So today what we've witnessed is that, there has been significant and renewed selling pressure across most of the Adani Group stocks. In fact, just to put it in perspective, during the peak, across most of the stocks or the peak market cap for this group was almost 24 lakh crore. And, current market cap is just around 7.6 lakh crore. And since, the release of the Hindenburg report, the erosion has been a little over 11 lakh crore as far as the Adani Group stocks are concerned. So it's a very large fall that you're seeing across the entire group. Now, in terms of stock prices, it's quite alarming the way some of the stocks have actually fallen. So Adani Total, Adani Transmission and Adani Green, all three of these stocks have seen, cuts of over 70% since January 24th. The other group of stocks, Adani Enterprises, Adani Power, Adani Wilmar, anywhere between 30 to 60% is where they've seen the fall. And the least impacted have been, ACC, Adani Ports as well as Ambuja, again falling between 25 to 33%. NDTV too has seen a fall of over 30%. So clear, sharp knock has been seen. And today there has been renewed selling pressure, especially across Adani Enterprises, that has taken it quite significantly in today's trading session.
We had bought Ambuja Cement and a little bit more of Adani Port. The Adani Port was looked at more as reasonably valued even during the last 2-year rally. Adani stocks. Collectively, the market has said that you bring down your group or your own network by whatever, X 50%. And from here, you start a sustainable business.
Samir there on his Adani investments. Moving on, the National Stock Exchange has extended trading hours of interest rate derivatives from 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. The extended timing will come into effect tomorrow. The stock exchange has said that this move is aimed to converge the trading hours with underlying market timings. Contracts expiring this month will also be available for trading till 5 p.m. from tomorrow. Now, members of the RBI's Monetary Policy Committee remain cautious on inflation, but they are divided on how it should be tackled. Lata joins us now to take us through the minutes of the MPC meet and this divided vote. Lata, clear division. Jayant Verma and Ashima Goyal believe that this is enough as far as rates are concerned.
The Reserve Bank members of the MPC are very clear that inflation is not moving down as much as they would like to. The governor, for instance, points out that the November-December inflation that fell was entirely because of vegetables, which is a seasonal factor, and core is not falling. Dr. Rajiv Ranjan also pointing out similarly. He says the intermittent elements of inflation are falling, but steady inflation, which is core, continues to rise. And Dr. Patra going the distance and pointing out that inflation is actually hurting growth. The consumer surveys are indicating that people are not spending because they are, their purchasing power has been reduced, and firms are not investing because they are uncertain that inflation has firmly come down. He believes, therefore, for growth itself, inflation needs to be brought down. The external member, Dr. Bide, largely agrees with the governor and Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, saying that the core part of inflation needs to fall, and that's why he supports the rate hike. The two external members who have disagreed both on the stance and on the rate hike, Dr. Verma and Dr. Goyal, point out that much of the work is done and we have to wait to see the impact of rate hikes, which will be felt in lower inflation in the coming months. Dr. Goyal in particular saying that you will see a reduction in home demand as interest rates rise, and then inflation will come down. Dr. Verma even criticizes that the RBI forecasts are based on crude at $95, whereas crude has not been at $95 for a very long time. So inflation, therefore, has been overprojected. He also points out that the Reserve Bank was slow to raise rates, and now it is overdoing it. So while it hurt inflation earlier by slow action, now it is going to hurt growth by acting too much to make up for lost time. So clearly, it doesn't look like Dr. Verma is going to change his mind anytime. But Dr. Goyal, when she spoke to us, did say that she is data dependent. And if the Rabi harvest were not to be as good, and if data proves that inflation is sticky, then yes, the policy will have to be data dependent. Dr. Bide also believing that near-term inflation could be a little higher than expected, considering the Jan inflation also has been higher. That's the sum and substance of the minutes of the Monetary Policy Committee.
Because of the lags that are there in how monetary policy impacts the economy, you are always fighting tomorrow's battles and not today's battles. So month by month, the rate goes up, goes down. But the point is that we have done a significant amount of tightening over the last, 8-9 months. And that has pushed the policy rate to a point where it is having an impact on the economy. It is destroying demand. And that demand destruction will feed through into a moderation of inflation. That's going to happen.
The forecast projections for 23-24 are based on assuming a normal monsoon and the crude what it is and the exchange rate and so on. I mean, there is this possibility of food inflation being higher than I think what we probably assume in making that forecast for the fourth quarter.
Well, MPC minutes and the division there. Now, the other big newsmaker of the day, outgoing World Bank President David Malpass says the world needs to find a better way to answer inflation concerns. Malpass said he's concerned about the absorption of capital in developed markets. He also expressed optimism about a positive outcome on debt resolution at the upcoming G20 meeting in Bengaluru. He is chairing the G20 debt roundtable. Take a look.
The world has to find a way to get to the answer on inflation quicker than what is happening right now. It looks like a long, drawn-out process. We have to start from the premise that the 0% interest rate was an abnormal situation. That couldn't continue. So the world's moving to a more normal interest rate, and I've been pleased to see that the rupee has stabilized in recent months, and I think that's an opportunity as well for India to show that it's got a stable financial system that can really support a stable currency. For the world, one of the giant challenges is the debt of the advanced economies. This is the fiscal deficits that are so large. I need to note, India itself has still a sizable fiscal deficit. It's coming down in the current budget from 9% down somewhat, but it still is large by developing country standards. Trade is so important to the pace of global growth. It's a vital underpinning of how businesses work and how people can become more efficient through competition across borders. And so I'm worried that the current problems are causing some of the countries to put up new barriers to trade. Reconciling the debts of the various players, that's been taking a long time within the debt restructuring process. So reconcile the debts, agree that what you're trying to do is have comparable treatment across the various creditors, and then find ways to resolve some of the barriers. On China, important is they are still including non-disclosure clauses in some of their contracts. That makes it very difficult to do the restructuring. They take collateral, which is not really necessary, and also escrow accounts. China itself can benefit from this. It's one of the biggest exporters, often the biggest, to many parts of the world, and so it can benefit if there's faster growth in the countries.
You can catch the entire conversation with the outgoing World Bank President David Malpass at 10 p.m. right here on the CNBC-TV18 exclusive edition of the Global Dialogue. And speaking of the G20 summit, IMF chief Kristalina Georgieva believes India is uniquely positioned to bring countries together. In a blog post, the IMF chief has said it is important to steer clear of zero-sum policies as it will lead the world to poorer and being less secure. Georgieva also said that policymakers need to manage the potential of digital progress for an inclusive and fair future, while warning that nations must not slide towards protectionism. Heatwave concerns rising. The Met Department has warned of higher than normal temperatures across most parts of the country. The Met has also said high temperatures during the day and the night have led to high evaporation and subsequent dense fog at parts of Delhi, Haryana and West Rajasthan. The IMD has warned of temperature rising by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius above normal over the next 5 days over northwest, central and west India. It's also warned of unusually high daytime temperatures which could impact crops in Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan.
IMD is always very conservative because the government would not like to send wrong signals to the market. However, various other companies like McDonnell Pelz and other companies which track satellite data, which use Australian, Japanese satellite information, etc., they have been writing and they have been telling us that there is a possibility of El Nino this year. So the minimum we can do is to prepare an alternative plan for seeds.
Well, worry over the heat wave. Now, consulting firm McKinsey & Company is the latest to trim its workforce. The company is planning to cut 2,000 jobs as part of its restructuring plans. This will be McKinsey's biggest round of layoffs. The job cuts will include support staff in roles that do not have any direct contact with clients. In a response to CNBC-TV18's query, McKinsey said that they are redesigning the way their non-client service teams operate and they are continuing to hire client service professionals. The other big newsmaker tonight, Novartis Global CEO Vasant Narasimhan says they are in the execution phase of the journey to become a pure-play innovative company. In an exclusive conversation with me, Narasimhan said the pharma giant will expand its development center in India. He hopes that India can make the transition from a generic market to supporting innovative medicines. Take a look.
I think the challenge now is for India to make the transition from being a primarily generics market to trying to support innovative medicines. And other countries have made that transition. I think over the next decade, India can make that transition. And if India makes that transition, I would expect a large biotech sector to also come up here. Also, the diaspora could start to come back as well and really create those companies. We've evolved from a healthcare conglomerate, and then over the last 5 years, with $100 billion of transactions, transformed into a pure-play innovative medicines company. Since 2005, we've been able to build an over 10,000 strong presence in India, both with our Indian business, but also with this corporate center, where we cover pretty much all of the key functions within Novartis, ranging from development, research functions, all the way up through our advanced analytics, AI, and other capabilities. We plan to continue to invest and expand. I mean, we think that Hyderabad is an incredible location for talent. And so for us as a corporate center, India has become a really key location.
And you can catch the entire conversation with the Novartis Global CEO at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. American private equity firm Warburg Pincus maintains that India is a fantastic place for global investors. India's managing director, Vishal Mahadevia, says the recent dry run in the IPO market is not a concern for the firm.
I would say IPO markets that are shut are always not a good thing. You want the IPO markets to be open. You want a robust capital market. It's not a big cause of concern for us. The digital story in India has real legs to it to grow. And in the next couple of years, if we're not doing a lot more of that, I would personally be disappointed. Obviously at the right valuation and where we think we can make returns for our investors, but we are leaning in and liking to do more out there. I think for us, the IPO market is important because it's the next source of funding for our companies. It's very rarely been an exit for us.
Shares of logistics company Delivery fell more than 3% after shares worth 410 crore rupees exchanged hands in a block deal. This amounted to about 1.7% of the company's equity that was traded at an average price of 335 rupees a share. The government is likely to initiate the settlement of cases initiated by the National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority on pharma companies under the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. Two sources tell CNBC-TV18 the government expects to garner between 5,000 to 6,000 crore rupees. The National Pharma Pricing Authority had initiated cases against companies for charging prices higher than the prescribed prices of essential medicines. Sources tell us the government is assessing if the Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme, the ECLGS, needs to be extended. Remember, the scheme is set to end on the 31st of March. Sapna joins us now with more. Sapna, are we likely to see the sunset on the ECLGS come the 31st of March?
Well, what we are able to understand at the moment is that the government is in a review, or rather is in an assessment mode as far as the ECLGS is concerned. They have already taken some feedback from banks. There has been a meeting between Finance Ministry and banks on this front. Further to that, most likely the National Institute of Bank Management, Pune-based, has been asked to give an assessment report on ECLGS. Post that, I suppose the government will be able to take a call whether an extension is warranted beyond March 31 or not. Probably there are some indications within the government that since there are no COVID-led challenges anymore, ECLGS means an emergency credit line scheme. So there is no COVID-led emergency as of now. So probably some thought process within some quarters of the government that maybe an extension is not required. But before taking that step, a proper assessment is required, and hence NIBM has been roped in. And this is something we'll have to keep an eye on. As far as the other scheme is concerned, the loan guarantee scheme for COVID-affected areas, that's fairly new, and the amount there is also pretty less. Maybe on that front, the government will take a different call. But again, both the schemes are going to be reviewed by NIBM, and the government will make its view clear before March end.
Sapna, many thanks for joining us. We will head into a break, but up next, explosions reported in Kharkiv and other Ukrainian cities. Putin meets top Chinese diplomat Wang Yi in Moscow. A special report on the other side.
Yeah, Ajay, look at your dad. Will we be the same at his age?
Absolutely yes, if we plan our future like him.
How?
My father had invested in LIC's Jeevan Akshay, which gives immediate and guaranteed annuity at regular intervals, that too for life.
Wow. But do we have to wait until his age?
Absolutely not. We recently invested in LIC's new Jeevan Shanti, which gives deferred annuity, which means regular income after some years.
I see.
LIC.
LIC's annuity plans give 10 annuity options and flexibility in receiving regular income. LIC, हर पल आपके साथ.
अपने घर और कमर्शियल स्पेसेस को बनाइए अल्ट्रा मॉडर्न, इनोवेटिव, इको फ्रेंडली with quick installation. All this at the one-stop destination. Euro Pratik.
अरे तमन्ना जी.
नमस्ते. क्या हुआ?
पड़ोसी की दुकान खाली हो रही है. यही मौका है बिजनेस को बढ़ाने का. पर पैसा.
अपनी सुपर पावर यूज करने का टाइम आ गया है.
अब टेंशन मत लीजिए. IIFL फाइनेंस से झटपट गोल्ड लोन लीजिए और बिजनेस आगे बढ़ाइए.
आपके जैसे सुपर हीरोज ऐसी छोटी मोटी प्रॉब्लम से थोड़ी ना रुकते हैं. इसीलिए लाइफ जब भी आगे बढ़ने का मौका दे तो अपनी सुपर पावर, अपना गोल्ड यूज करिए और IIFL फाइनेंस से गोल्ड लोन लीजिए.
IIFL फाइनेंस करता है सीधी बात. Sarah, this is your space.
Play it your way. MCX Aluminium Mini Futures Contract 1 metric ton. Available for trading from Monday, February 20th. Refer to circular on mcxindia.com.
Ukrainian military has claimed that Russia launched multiple attacks from heavy rocket systems in the past 24 hours. Explosions were reported from Bakhmut and eastern parts of Ukraine. Meanwhile, Putin met top Chinese diplomat Wang Yi in Moscow, thousands gathering at a stadium in the Russian capital for a rally concert marking 1 year of the war. Predominantly a Russian-speaking city, Kharkiv in eastern Ukraine is under attack from Putin's troops on multiple occasions over the course of the war. Sanjay Suri travels around the streets of Kharkiv, interacts with some Russian-speaking people, and they tell him that though the Russian language is a hangover of the Soviet era, their loyalty lies with Ukraine.
Kharkiv here could have the answer to an important question, perhaps, and speaking accurately, the biggest question of this war. Look at this board here. It says, "We are together, we are Kharkiv." In Kharkiv, we means predominantly Russian-speaking, and nobody celebrated the defeat and then departure of Russian troops more than this Russian-speaking Kharkiv. To be Russian-speaking and to be Russian are quite different matters. The Russian-speaking people of Kharkiv appear to feel no different about Ukraine than does Russian-speaking Zelensky.
Звісно, краще стало, тому що є страх.
A lot of people, especially in Kharkiv, Donetsk and Luhansk regions, speak Russian. We had a lot of Russian schools in Ukraine before, so a lot of people speak Russian. We just got used to the language, but all people support Ukraine and want to live in Ukraine. Nobody wants to be Russian.
It is Russia that attacked and killed Russian-speaking people right across Kharkiv. An odd way of claiming a people as your own. Some of Kharkiv is beginning to limp back to life. We see some determined efforts, some brave touches here and there, some spirit determined that we should proceed and rebuild our lives and our cities, but not here in Saltivka. This is a neighborhood without people in it. Hundreds of blocks such as this, and now all almost deserted. Windows have been boarded up, the homes within almost empty but for the odd ones who have still not left or returned through sheer determination or optimism, because some buildings did survive. The neighborhood was hit by unguided rockets fired by the Russians who had invaded the city. Survival was as random as the attacks. Street names and numbers here mean nothing. Of Kharkiv's population of above 2 million before the war, an estimated 800,000 remain.
A year of the Russia-Ukraine war. Moving on to national headlines, Aam Aadmi Party's Shelly Oberoi has been elected the Delhi mayor with 150 votes. BJP's nominee Rekha Gupta polled 116 votes. The civic body's 3 earlier attempts to hold elections has failed as the Aam Aadmi Party was opposed to members nominated by the LG voting in the polls. The Supreme Court later ruled in the Aam Aadmi Party's favour. UP Finance Minister has unveiled the state's biggest ever budget of nearly 7 lakh crores, allocating funds to help youth, women, startups and the agri-sector. Expects the state GDP to touch 19% in FY24. Chief Minister Adityanath calls it the first budget of the Amrit Kal. Mumbai's iconic railway station Churchgate will be renamed after the Reserve Bank's first Indian governor and former Union Finance Minister C.D. Deshmukh. Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde led Shiv Sena past the resolution during its national executive meeting. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. But before we